Givers, feed slowly, Cliff said. Feed off part of your body, but do everything slowly. Slow is always better. It was a little like a starter's pistol had gone off, but instead of running in a straight direction, the masked athletes had begun swaying and groaning with their mouths open like little baby chicks. I was immediately feeling a little out of my depth. Oh, Christ, I thought. I circulated slightly aimlessly, trying to stay in the orbit of receivers who already had a giver next to them to take the pressure off me. But even with a 2-to-1 ratio, it still occasionally happened that I was left alone with a receiver, which induced mild feelings of panic, having the sole responsibility of imparting profound feelings of connectedness and emotional well-being. In a way, the feeding was the easy part. You pop a chocolate into someone's mouth, they go, mmm. But you can't just keep feeding, and it wasn't totally clear what the next move was. You squeeze the shoulders, massage the arms a little bit, but then what? I was running out of ideas. A bit more chocolate? A strawberry? As the minutes passed, there was a palpable escalation in the groaning and gyrating. Cliff was keeping up a patter of encouragement. Find connection on a deeper level, he intoned as he paced up and down. Across from me, a long-haired woman, who I knew to be a doctor, was squirting whipped cream onto one of her breasts, and with a big smile on her face feeding it, the cream, and possibly portions of breast, to her receiver. Meanwhile, the man in the leatherette waistcoat was moaning and spasming in ecstasy. I looked over at my director, Aaron, to try to gauge his reaction. Was this what he'd been expecting? His eye was fixed to his camera. And then it was my turn. Group 2 was called, and what, after all, was I doing here if I wasn't going to get involved? I loaded my plate with some chocolate, some strawberries, slices of apple. I'd heard someone recommend a combination of savory and sweet, so I added a couple of slabs of cheese. I took my shirt off, and I put my eye mask on, noticing a strange sense of liberation as my vision was obscured. I felt invisible, and some of my self-consciousness ebbed away. Human connection is one of the most precious things we can experience in our lives, Cliff was saying. This is an incredibly safe space to explore touch, to explore sensuality. Strawberries and cream were tickling around my mouth. I was aware of a low throaty sound and a soft face pressing against my cheeks. Then a warm, hairy body was at my back. I had the impression of a pendant, and then more flavors. Chocolate, whipped cream. I was saying my yeses and thank yous. There was the sensation of other bodies, and bits of chocolate and more strawberries entering my mouth, and cheese. Possibly a little too much cheese, though I didn't like to mention it because I thought it might spoil the mood. And above all, there was a growing feeling of connectedness, the faint echo of the tingling sensation of a first kiss with a new lover. I had to admit, I was enjoying it. And then it was all over. I took my mask off to see Cliff sambering up and down in a transport of satisfaction at the tableau he had created. But for a moment the idea of a community in which the currency of sex and love was more free-flowing made a tiny bit of sense. I rubbed my eyes at a world that felt a little friendlier, a little closer to home. A little later I said my goodbyes and drove back to my hotel with the crew. In the minivan, I felt slightly sheepish at how far I'd gone with my commitment to experiencing the workshop. I had the familiar sensation of being assailed by multiple ironies, of having been in control of an experience and at the same time out of my depth. I thought about my wife, Nancy, aware that the scene I'd told her we'd be filming, involving me being fed a couple of strawberries by scantily clad women, had turned out to be more outré than I'd expected. I wondered whether she would be upset and annoyed. And I thought, here I am, aged 47, still making a fool of myself for the purposes of a TV show, creating connections in unlikely places, in a spirit in which the boundaries between silliness and seriousness, sincerity and role-playing, self-exposure and canny journalistic revelation weren't always clear, even to me. Here I am, telling stories, using myself, my feelings, for real. After so many years, still doing it. Chapter 1. Boisterous.